The world watched as Nelson Mandela, head of the African National Congress Party, the ANC, ushered South Africa out of apartheid and into a democratic era.
We reaffirm our determination to build a society of which each of us can be proud.
Hello everyone, once again welcome to my YouTube channel. It's Reviving Destinies. Here we revive destinies. So today I'm going to speak about the legacy of Nelson Mandela. Is Nelson Mandela indeed a hero? That's what I'm going to talk about. So I just want to break my points into pieces so that they can be comprehensible to the side of everyone. So before we speak about Nelson Mandela we know is known of fighting for apartheid, the separation movement. I spoke a lot about the colonization in South Africa. Now I'm just going to speak about starting from 1948 and up until 1994, which is the apartheid movement. So remember, the battle or never started in 1948. It started way before 1948, in 1652. So now, as I'm breaking my facts, or as I'm breaking my points into pieces, I just want to elaborate this very well. So apartheid system, it was not necessarily mean white people beating black people, white police shooting black people. Yes, those were the fruits of apartheid, but the major goal of apartheid was to create a system which benefit some group of people through the exploitation of some group of people. That was the major benefit of apartheid. So into this case, apartheid were benefiting white people in the expense of exploitation of black people. So and other races also. So but majority black people were at the bottom of everything. So white people, they were on top, followed by Indians, followed by colored. Black people were at the bottom. So trust me, after black people, they were being defeated after those long battles which happened. Black people were taken from where they were staying in all their places, in their native lands, and they were evicted to go and stay, to go and be congested in certain areas of the country. Mainly they were congested in the homelands. For example, homelands, there were homelands in Free State, homelands in KZN, homelands in Limpopo, homelands in Northwest, homelands in Eastern Cape. So after they've been evicted out of that, they've drafted laws, the laws of property, the laws which forbidden black people from being in contract with white people in the leasing of land or in the leasing of any property which is supposed to be the property of white people. So that's the major goal of apartheid. So bear this in mind. The law does not mean it's always just. A law can be unjust at some time. So a law sometimes can protect the privileges gained from injustice. So that's exactly what is happening. So after black people, they were being evicted, the part of the land which they evicted from black people, they use it for farming. Some of them, they use it for development, the building of the cities which we see. Some of it, they were used for golf estate, for recreational activities. Some of it, they were just settled and say, this is part of crop, this is part of livestock farming for animals. And some of them, they were being secured for forestry. For example, whenever you go to Mpumalanga, Hazyview, when you go to Hazyview, Sabi, Nelspruit, there are lots of forest which you can see. Majority of that land they were just evicted black people who were staying there. After evicting them, they just secured that land for farming. Some they were not even for farming, for forestry. And black people were not allowed to settle in those environments because they were being said that they will kill certain species of plant. Black people in the 80% of the population, they were forced to be congested in some areas of land in South Africa, in those places of homeland. And those land, they were not fertile, they were not good for settlement. But all the land which were strategic, they removed them from such lands. And some of them, they were not even used, they were just being settled. Whenever black people were trying to protest, they were being shot by the police, they were being attacked by people. In that building of the system, there were black people who were part of the police, black people who were part of the system which perpetuated that oppression which you have seen. This is not just a myth or a fallacy. This is a truth. We have a portion of land, even today, which you can see that South Africa, there is still the mark of segregation of it. So, and also, they've discovered mines as times goes on. In Gauteng, the word Gauteng is a very Tswana name, Sotho name, which means the place of gold. They discovered gold mines, and also they discovered diamond mine in Kimberley, and also they discovered some other mines which they were mining different things in different places of the country. And they noticed that they will need some labor force now. And as they needed a labor force, their legislative gathered. Legislative is a place where they draft laws through the political means. They gathered, and as they gathered, they drafted the laws which they will say every household should pay some portion of tax. And as they pay some portion of tax, they had to take every man who were living into the homelands of KZN, Eastern Cape, Northwest, Limpopo, and some other places of South Africa to be taken to work in the gold mines in Gauteng, to work in the diamond mines in Kimberley, to work in some other places, to work in the farms, to work in the farms also, where they were producing food and everything. So after black people, they were being taken in those areas, they were working in the underground, mining, drilling rocks. And trust me, they were being paid lower salaries after doing that heavy job, as they were the one who were maintaining that capitalistic structure. And trust me, it's risky to work in the mines. Some they were dying at the younger ages because as they do those minings, some they die because of lungs diseases and TB, because that dust comes into their lungs. They were working for over hours, paid lower salaries out of that oppression. And the management and the high management, there were only white people. There were areas which they were only for white people. There were toilets which they were only for white people. There were universities which they were only for white people in South Africa. I don't want to mention the names because I don't know whether it's criminality or I don't know whether it's a crime or not to mention names. But that is the truth which they were happening in South Africa. And that segregation perpetuated that inequality which you see existing today. So 80% of the population in apartheid, they were owning only 13% of the South African land. I'm not sure whether it's 13% or 9% of the South African land. And they were black people. And all the remaining land were for majority were for white people, and as majority were white people, some portion of it were not even used. They were just settled for forestry and other factors. In black people being congested in the homelands, and some of them they came to the township because they had to work to maintain that capitalistic structure, work in the cities as cleaners, to work in the ShopRite, to work in the mines, to work in the different places of South Africa, being paid lower salaries. I'm speaking about apartheid now. So as those things that were happening, that's where it developed some areas of squatter camps or slums, which later grew into the townships. Soweto is one of the biggest example of the township, and also Langa is one of the biggest example. Khayelitsha, sorry, is one of the biggest, one of the big townships which we see today. So out of all those things which happened in apartheid, 1994 was a new beginning, new hope for the oppressed masses of South Africans. As black people were there, congested in those areas, Nelson Mandela, who was leading the struggle, who was in Robben Island, came out of prison. And as he came out of prison, they had a negotiation to gather and draft the new constitution, draft the new legislative, draft the new laws. They make a law which says they should protect the property rights. Remember, we are in a country threatened by inequality, a country where majority of the population own only 13% of the land, out of the endless battles which happened in colonization. But rather they still draft the laws which says the property should be protected. Property should be protected. And as property should be protected, certain people, or how will I say this? How will you say proper? How will you draft a law of fairness whenever people are not coming from the same place? For example, if people are running, then somebody else is ahead of somebody else, but you expect those people to arrive at the same time. That will be an injustice, as you see. So that law, which is part of our constitution, which we're saying the protection of the property, there is no way where the distribution of the resources can be made possible if there is a part of the constitution which says there should be the proper, that there should be the protection of the property rights. We live in a country where 10% of South African population own 80% of the resources. 80% of the resources which they got out of exploiting that masses of our people. It's not like black people, they were being poor because they were lazy. Trust me, that capitalistic structure is built by their hands, is built by their blood. So out of them being congested, or out of them being exploited like that, and the benefits were made for that minority of the population. 80% of the population, of the resources of the South Africa are controlled by only 10% of South African population. And whenever we dig deep, 1% of the population of South Africa, which is equivalent to 350,000 individuals, is controlled by, they control 55% of South African resources, financial resources, and all the strategic sectors of the resources. And whenever we go deep, is 0.1% of South African population, which is 35% of the population, control third of South African resources. 1/3, 33.333% of South African resources. In a country where 2/3 of the population live under poverty, they still live below poverty line. In a country where we have 33% of unemployment rate, and trust me, it's not only that mark of apartheid which contribute to that inequality. We have also some addition of some factors which perpetuate to that issues. Corruption, state capture is one of the major issue of South African land. Trust me, South African land, South African resources, they are being divided into three major people. Majority of it goes to minority of South African population which are capitalist or private sector. Then some portion of it goes to the government sector, some through the payment of the ministers, some through that corruption, and some of it goes to the foreign investment which work hand to hand with the private sector. Gold which are being mined and all the resources which are being mined in South Africa, they are being taken out of our country raw as they are at a very lower price. That doesn't create a good employment for our people. So as I suggested, as I label the problem, I think it is very, very wise if our country can solve the issues of corruption. We can have a good government which will solve the corruption issues. We can have a government which will try to dismantle that inequality, implementation of policies which will try to divide the South African resources. Because and this can be only be done if they implement or try to make better some sectors of the country, trying to make the education of the country good and affordable for everyone. Because if the good education is not they require much money to pay for a good education, this means only few of those who can afford will only go to school. This means it will only be the rotation of those who are rich. Only the inheritance of the rich will only manage to get good education, and those who will get good education will be the rich. This means the wealth will always gonna be inherited. Education is very good because if the skills and the trainings they are not there, people are going to be given jobs or positions which they don't qualify for, only because they try to distribute that inequality. And in that case, we will see our system or our economy falling because there are no qualified people to handle, there are no skillful people to maintain that structure or that economy. So good education should be given, should be made affordable for everyone. That is a major problem, and corruption issues should be solved. There should be good teachers starting from our primary level, secondary level, and even tertiary level, where people will get good education, perfect education for everyone and for all. And also jobs should be created, and quality jobs, not jobs which perpetuate that inequality. So, and another thing is that they should implement laws which will regulate the tax, which will regulate the trading of our resources. They should only also implement, or they try to make sure that our country is become more productive, because everything which is in South Africa, which the government hold as their money, they only hold the money which they collect as tax from people. And as ever they collect the tax from people, that money sometimes is not enough to provide quality education, social welfare, healthcare, and some issues. That's why most of the things they are being operated under the deficit or the negative balance, because that tax is not enough. Yes, we have a good middle class in South Africa, but that is not always enough to compensate, to pay for such issues. But our country, if it become productive in a way that after those minerals they are being mined, they should be transformed into value-added goods, and there should be many things, many industrializations which is happening in our country in such a way that our country itself will trade with what they have, so that they will have lots of money which is collected out of their export, out of what they export to other issues. Just like China export a lot, just like America export a lot, just like Germany export a lot. So South Africa should make sure that they have things which they produce locally, unlike importing most of things which they produce locally, and things which they will produce locally, this will only be possible if we have good education and skills. And if South Africa produce lots of things locally, this means they will export lots of things. And as they export lots of value-added goods, not just minerals which they mine in the mine, and they are being exploited, they are being exported at a lower salaries. They exploit things which they will make lots of revenue as part of their export. So we should have good foreign money, foreign revenue. Lots of money should come out of revenue, which will help that portion of money which they collect from taxes, so that they can pay things like educational facilities, pay things like social health care, pay other things which we need in our country. In such cases, they will solve that issues of poverty which we see, inequality which we see. But that one is a major decision which I think is really needed. The issue of inequality in our country need the local decisions. Part of our government should make decisions to make sure that they try to dismantle this inequality. Because even if South Africa export a lot and get lots of revenue from their export, if that export will only benefit some minority of the population, that doesn't change anything. So out of such things, Nelson Mandela pushed it to the point of together with other people, they push it to other people like Oliver Tambo, Tasi Zulu, Chris Hani, and many more. They push it to that point where black people were allowed to vote, black people were allowed to go to places which they were not there. But the struggle was not yet over. So I think I gave the solution. I think I tried to give my possible solutions to what should have been done from there. And Nelson Mandela is not like he's a complete sellout, he's a bad person. He was already old, and he even said it publicly that the struggle is not yet over. So I can present my case there. Let's unite as South African people to fight the poverty, state capture, inequality, and all the issues which you see in our country. And let's not fight races, let's not divide as people of our race, but let's unite to fight all those problems which you see in our continent. Does not mean when a person is white, it means it's racist. Trust me, even in apartheid, there were white people who were fighting for black people. And at the same time, it's not like every black person is a victim. There were black people who were selling other black people in apartheid, to the apartheid regime, and even to the colonization. So let's not look at white people and assume that they are our enemies. They are our enemies, and not all white people are racist. That is a great emphasis which I just want to make. So let me finish my video there. Please don't forget to subscribe on my channel, share it with other people. Let me see you on my next video. Shalom.